On the Eastern Front during World War II, battles were often unpredictable, shifting the tide of war in surprising ways. This vast and unforgiving landscape was marked by brutal winters, intense fighting, and the constant presence of danger. Soldiers had to endure freezing temperatures, mud, and the threat of enemy attacks, which could come at any moment. In this chaotic environment, one soldier began to draw attention for his unique approach to combat. Private Mikhail Ivanov was not just an ordinary fighter. He understood that traditional methods of warfare were sometimes less effective against the overwhelming forces of the German army. Instead of strictly adhering to standard tactics, Mikhail emphasized creativity and resourcefulness. From early on, he noticed that many of his fellow soldiers relied heavily on their rifles and standard battle formations. While these were essential tools, Mikhail believed they were not enough to secure victory. He proposed various guerrilla warfare tactics, encouraging his comrades to think outside the box. Mikhail organized small groups of soldiers to carry out surprise attacks on enemy supply lines, aiming to disrupt their operations. His strategy was simple but effective. By hitting them where it hurt the most, they could weaken the enemy's resolve. Many of his fellow soldiers were skeptical at first. They had grown accustomed to a more conventional mindset, but slowly, Mikhail's success in these endeavors began to change their outlook. During one particularly bitter winter, Mikhail's unit was stationed near a small village that the Germans frequently used as a base. Instead of waiting for the enemy to strike, they launched a covert operation. Under the cover of darkness, Mikhail and his team moved silently, navigating through the snow-laden forest. Their mission was to sabotage an ammunition depot that the Germans had built just outside the village. Using their knowledge of the terrain, they set explosive charges at key points. When the charges detonated, the explosion sent shockwaves through the enemy camp. The German soldiers were thrown into disarray, scrambling to respond to the unexpected attack. Mikhail and his team seized the moment, attacking with all the ferocity they could muster. The mission was risky, but it was a success. They managed to hit the Germans hard, disrupting their supply chain and boosting the morale of Mikhail's fellow soldiers. News of the operation spread quickly, and soon more troops were eager to join Mikhail's unconventional approach to warfare. His methods, once seen as reckless, were now being embraced as innovative and necessary. As the winter dragged on, Mikhail gained a reputation not just for his tactical skills, but also for his ability to inspire those around him. He emphasized teamwork and the importance of adaptability. His belief was that every soldier had a role to play, and together, they could shift the balance of power even against daunting odds. With each victory, Mikhail became a symbol of resilience and creativity on the Eastern Front. While the war continued to bring challenges and losses, his story reminded soldiers that sometimes thinking differently could lead to the best outcomes. The Eastern Front was a place of hardship, but it was also a theater for heroes, each with their own unique way of fighting for survival and victory. Sergeant Alexei Ivanov stood out among his fellow soldiers on the Eastern Front, not just for his rank, but for the old-fashioned rifle he carried. While most of his comrades were armed with modern weapons, equipped with more advanced technology, Alexei's rifle was seen as outdated, a relic from a previous era. His peers often chuckled at his choice, sometimes teasing him with light-hearted jibes about how he should be using a more modern weapon to survive the brutal conditions of the battlefield. To them, his rifle appeared almost comical compared to their sleek, high-tech firearms. They were convinced that their advanced gear would give them the edge they needed in the fierce confrontations against the German forces. However, Alexei took the jests in stride. He believed that a weapon's efficiency came from the skill of the person using it rather than the technology it boasted. He had learned to handle his rifle with precision and care, knowing every little quirk it had. His years of experience taught him that knowing your weapon inside and out could make all the difference in a firefight. As time passed, the tides of war began to change dramatically. The relentless winter weather and harsh conditions took their toll on every soldier, and as supply lines became more strained, advanced equipment began to fail. Cold temperatures affected batteries and electronics. Aiming systems became obsolete in the bitter frost. Those highly advanced guns that once seemed superior now struggled under the harsh realities of war. During one tense encounter, Alexei's unit found themselves pinned down by enemy fire. The situation was dire, and panic threatened to take hold. While others struggled with their sophisticated weapons, trying to get them to function properly in the frigid air, Alexei remained calm. He relied on his trusty rifle, focusing on the task at hand. With precise shots, he managed to take out enemy targets one by one, demonstrating a level of skill that many had begun to admire. His fellow soldiers quickly shifted their perspective. They began to realize that Alexei's simplicity had its advantages. As they watched him maneuver effectively, hitting his targets while their sophisticated gear faltered, respect replaced the earlier amusement. His experience, patience, and determination shone through, proving that sometimes the basics were what mattered most. After the skirmish, Alexei gathered his comrades. Rather than gloating about their newfound understanding, he emphasized teamwork and shared knowledge. He taught them how to clean and maintain their weapons, how to aim under pressure, and most importantly, how to stay grounded when the chaos of battle threatened to overwhelm. In the days that followed, Alexei became known not only as a skilled marksman, but also as a mentor. He used his experience to bring the unit together, fostering a spirit of camaraderie and resilience. The jokes about his rifle faded away, replaced by a collective gratitude for his unwavering spirit and dedication. The war was far from over, but Sergeant Alexei Ivanov's journey taught his unit a vital lesson. Sometimes it's not about the newest tools, it's about the heart and the skill behind them. Despite the teasing from his fellow soldiers, Sergeant Alexei Ivanov possessed a deep understanding of the land around him. He had spent countless hours studying every hill, forest, and river in the area, learning how to use the terrain to his advantage. While others were focused on the latest weapons and technology, Alexei was honing skills that would prove invaluable in the heat of battle. His knowledge of camouflage and stealth was impressive. He could blend into the environment as if he were part of it, making it difficult for enemies to spot him. When the ground was covered in snow, he wore white clothing that allowed him to disappear against the backdrop of winter. In the woods, he used the rich colors of the bark and foliage to his advantage, often catching the enemy off guard. Those who underestimated him quickly learned their lesson. One day, during a critical mission to gather intelligence on an enemy position, Alexei's team struggled to approach without being seen. Other soldiers were feeling defeated, arguing about their tactics. But Alexei calmly suggested a different approach. Using his knowledge of the terrain, he led them on a winding path that avoided open areas where they could be easily spotted. With quiet steps, they moved through a dense thicket, and Alexei used his skills in stealth to scout ahead. He crawled on his belly, inactive and patient, observing the enemy camp from a distance. By truly understanding how to use the land, he picked up valuable information that would help in planning their next move. When they returned from the mission, Alexei's observations were crucial in formulating a plan of attack. Others, who had initially dismissed him because of his old rifle, were now starting to see him in a different light. They realized that his wisdom and experience were just as important as having the latest weaponry. As the days turned into weeks, Alexei became known not just for his shooting, but also for his tactical acumen. He shared his insights with the unit, teaching them how to utilize the environment effectively. He encouraged them to think creatively during combat, reminding them that sometimes the simplest tactic could lead to the biggest victory. His ability to move unnoticed gave his troops the advantage they needed in multiple engagements. They began to adopt his approach, blending into their surroundings and striking unexpectedly. With each victory, the bond among the soldiers grew stronger, built on respect for one another's strengths regardless of the tools they carried. For Sergeant Ivanov, the battlefield was more than just a place of combat. It was a complex puzzle of land and strategy. He taught his comrades that understanding their environment could be just as powerful as any state-of-the-art weapon. As they faced the challenges of war together, they learned that strength came in many forms, and often, the most underestimated soldier could become a key player in their fight for survival. As winter settled in on the Eastern Front, everything changed. The landscape transformed into a white wonderland with heavy snow blanketing the ground. The temperatures plummeted, making life on the front lines even more challenging. Operations slowed down noticeably, and the once bustling sound of gunfire and orders gave way to an eerie quiet. Soldiers huddled in their makeshift shelters, anxiously waiting for the next orders, their nerves fraying with every passing day. Tensions rose as both sides watched each other closely, knowing that a single move could trigger a fierce confrontation. But while many soldiers felt vulnerable and exposed during these harsh conditions, Sergeant Alexei Ivanov remained focused. He continued to rely on his tried-and-true tactics, which had become second nature to him. His understanding of the terrain and his strong grasp on camouflage allowed him to navigate the winter landscape adeptly. While his comrades struggled with the cold and the stillness, Alexei's keen mind stayed active. He used the snowy conditions to his advantage, devising plans that often caught the enemy off guard. While others might have waited in fear, he would scout the area, watching for any weaknesses in the German lines. His archaic rifle, once viewed as a liability, became a symbol of his unyielding spirit and tactical ingenuity. One day, during a particularly quiet stretch, Alexei noticed that the enemy had grown complacent. Many German soldiers seemed to be taking the cold as an opportunity to relax, believing they had the upper hand. Seeing this, he gathered a small group of trusted men and shared his plan. His strategy involved quick, silent movements to ambush an enemy patrol that he suspected would be crossing a nearby frozen field. As twilight descended, the team moved out, led by Alexei's steady hand. He instructed them to move quietly, blending into the shadows of the trees where the snow felt thick underfoot. They waited in silence as they spotted the enemy patrol approaching, unaware of the danger lying in wait. When the moment came, Alexei's calm voice snapped through the air, signaling the attack. The ambush was swift. Thanks to Alexei's careful planning, the enemy stood little chance. His team struck hard and fast, and within moments they had neutralized the patrol, seizing weapons and supplies that would aid them in their own fight. When they returned, the success of the mission energized the entire unit. Alexei's consistent efforts and strategic mind were recognized, shifting perceptions among his fellow soldiers. They began to appreciate not just his skills as a marksman, but his ability to think strategically, even in the dead of winter. As the weeks wore on, his tactics continued to yield results, and he became a key figure among his peers. His determination and unique approach, forged in hardship, inspired others to adapt their strategies as well. In a time when fear and uncertainty loomed large, Alexei Ivanov became a beacon of hope, a reminder that with cleverness and grit, they could face the harshest of winters and the fiercest of foes. When the fighting resumed after the long, harsh winter, Sergeant Alexei Ivanov's ability to adapt became more important than ever. The enemy forces were advancing from the west, pushing hard against the front lines. Many of his comrades, who had relied heavily on their advanced weapons, found themselves caught off guard. These high-tech firearms, which had seemed so powerful just months before, struggled in the snowy, frozen terrain. While tanks and automatic rifles had their merits, they were less effective in the tight spaces created by the snow-laden landscape. Snow drifts and trees often obscured pathways, making it difficult to maneuver. With visibility limited and the ground uneven, many soldiers faced challenges trying to harness the full potential of their equipment. Alexei, however, embraced the chaos. His well-worn rifle, the one previously seen as outdated, felt comfortable in his hands. In the close-quarters combat that erupted, he found that his skills with the weapon were well-suited for this type of fighting. He became adept at moving quickly and quietly, using his knowledge of the terrain to outmaneuver the enemy. One afternoon, as enemy troops pushed through an area where the snow was thickest, Alexei spotted a group of German soldiers trying to set up a fortified position. They were clumsy in their haste, their confidence built on the assumption that they could easily dominate the terrain. Recognizing their vulnerability, Alexei gathered a small team once more and devised a maneuver that would take advantage of their overreaching strategy. With careful planning, they moved into position, navigating the snowy landscape with quiet precision. Alexei led the way, staying low and hidden while preparing for an ambush. When they were ready, he signaled his comrades to act. They attacked with speed and ferocity, catching the enemy completely off guard. The close combat favored Alexei's trusty rifle, allowing him to quickly pick off targets before they even had a chance to react. After the skirmish, the once cocky enemy soldiers found themselves demoralized. They had underestimated the tenacity and tactics of Alexei and his team. As the snow continued to fall, burying the remnants of the fight, Alexei's reputation began to grow. His ability to adapt and use his surroundings effectively turned the tide of the skirmish in their favor. In the days that followed, his fellow soldiers looked to him for guidance. They began to understand that having flashy weapons wasn't everything. It was how you used what you had that made the difference. Rather than relying solely on advanced technology, they started embracing tactics that utilized their environment, much like Alexei had always done. In a time of uncertainty, Sergeant Ivanov became a figure of resilience and ingenuity. His simple yet effective approach to warfare not only kept him safe, but also brought hope to those fighting alongside him. They learned from his example, finding strength in their unity and resourcefulness, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the aftermath of the recent skirmishes, something shifted among Sergeant Alexei Ivanov's fellow soldiers. The laughter that once echoed around him had faded away, replaced by a deep respect for his abilities. They began to recognize that his knowledge of the land and his resourcefulness were powerful assets in the ongoing conflict. Alexei saw this as an opportunity to teach his comrades. He gathered them around the fire on cold evenings and shared lessons about the importance of understanding their tools and the environment they were fighting in. He emphasized that the blend of old techniques with new strategies could often lead to success. While many were focused on the latest equipment, Alexei reminded them that sometimes simpler methods could yield better results in unexpected situations. He encouraged them to practice with their weapons, not just to use the fancy gadgets, but to really know their gear inside out. This understanding made them more confident in the field, especially when conditions got tough. His fellow soldiers started to adapt his approaches, adjusting their strategies to fit the challenges they faced in the snowy terrain. As the conflict dragged on, Ivanov quietly emerged as a hero among his peers. There was no fanfare or grand displays. Instead, it was his consistent performance and steady guidance that won the admiration of those around him. He showed that true leadership didn't always come from shouting orders or showing off new weapons. It often came from listening, learning, and adapting to circumstances. One day, while planning their next move in a makeshift shelter, a younger soldier turned to Alexei and said, "I see now why you believe your old rifle is worth keeping." Alexei smiled in response, knowing that the respect he had earned was far more valuable than any advanced weapon. The war was harsh, and many found comfort in laughter to ease the suffering. But Ivanov realized that sometimes, laughter could be misplaced in the face of war's reality. Instead, he chose to inspire with his actions, showing his comrades that success in battle often came from determination, knowledge, and a clear understanding of their surroundings. As months passed, the camaraderie among the soldiers grew stronger. With Alexei leading the charge in a quieter, more thoughtful way, they faced each new challenge together, ready to outsmart the enemy and support one another. In the heart of war, Sergeant Ivanov had transformed into a guiding figure, teaching that respect and resilience could conquer much more than mere weaponry ever could.